This is a sample teaching video for the role of academic associate at Vidyalai. Hi, my name is Huma and for this video I have chosen Maya Angelou's poem, I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings. Before we understand the text of the poem, we should know a little background detail. The name of the poet, as you can see here, is Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was a civil rights activist and a spokesperson for the rights of black people and black women specifically. There's also an autobiography written by her with the same name as of this poem, I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings. This autobiography chronicles the details of her life in a fictional manner, which begins when she was 3 years old and ends when she becomes a mother at the very young age of 16. This particular poem, however, was published in a poetry collection called Shaker, Why Don't You Sing in 1983. I repeat, the name of the poetry collection, Shaker, Why Don't You Sing. This entire poetry collection talks or celebrates the ability to survive all hardships of life. Now, before we understand the text of the poem, let me tell you that the poem establishes contrast between two birds, a free bird and a caged bird. A free bird lives in nature, and the second one, a caged bird, it suffers in captivity. A free bird sings because it is happy and free, while the second or the caged bird sings because it has to cope up with its sufferings. And by singing, through the means of singing, it expresses its desire for freedom. Now, on a metaphorical level, these birds are representation of African American people in a white dominant community. Now let's go to the text. Stanza 1 says, a free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. The very first line of the poem says about the privileges that a free bird can enjoy. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind, floats downstream. Downstream is a stream or a river, and the free bird glides or hovers around the length of the stream. There's nobody to stop it. It has the freedom to fly for however long it wants to. As we are not definitely sure about the length of the stream, there is no restriction or limitations on the bird. On the last line, the poet says, dares to claim the sky. And this use of the word dare says that the bird is courageous enough to claim the sky, to fly as far and distant as she wants, and to also fly as high as she wants. The second stanza establishes the contrast, however. It talks about a caged bird. This part talks about the caged bird. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of reach. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The poet is saying here that a bird that is restricted in the narrow cage can seldom see through the bars of rage. Here, bars of rage are again a symbolism. Rage means anger. It means anger. And the bird is not able to see beyond anger. It's not able to think about anything else. His wings are clipped, his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. Two forms of freedom. Two ways in which a bird can exercise freedom is through flying or through his feet when he hops. But both these ways are restricted to him. So the last way that he has is to open his throat for rebellion and also to express itself. Now, when I ask you a question, what is a bird? When you think of a bird, what do you imagine? You will say, ma'am, it flies in the sky. But you can see that the very essence of being a bird is stolen from a caged bird. So in a way, it is reduced to something lesser than a bird, something that is not a bird exactly. Let's come to the third stanza. The third stanza again describes the plight of the caged bird. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Here the poet is saying that there is a fearful waver in her voice, in the caged bird's voice. And the bird is singing for things that are unknown to it, but he still longs for it. Even though the caged bird doesn't know how it feels to be free, it still longs for freedom. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. And this song, sung by this caged bird, is heard on the distant hill, and the birds on that distant hill are able to hear him sing. And they are able to be thankful for the freedom that they enjoy. Okay, this again discusses the plight of the caged bird in a little more detail. Next stanza, stanza number 4. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. Here the poet has again gone back to the privileges that a free bird enjoys. A free bird thinks of another breeze, and it glides through the sighing trees. It flies from between the sighing trees. Another thing to note here is that trees do not sigh. Human beings sigh when they are in pain or when they are tired. So this image of trees can also be seen as a restricted entity or a body, because trees are also fixed on the ground through their roots, and their movement is also very limited. So the trees are also sighing. This you can call as the personification of trees. Anything that is attributed, or any non-human thing, when it is attributed human qualities, it is called as personification. For example, animals and birds are often given human attributes in Disney movies. So that's personification, or we better call it as beast fables. But you get the idea, right? Then the other privilege that the free bird enjoys is thinking of the fat worms. It can hunt, it can catch the fat worms on itself. And he names the sky his own, because there is no limit. Nobody is there to restrict him. He has the freedom. He can fly to the distant east and name the sky his own, or to whatever direction it pleases him. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. Now here the poet is saying that the caged bird is standing on the grave of dreams. What is the meaning of grave? Grave is a place when a person dies, we bury him under the ground, and that place, that thing is called as a grave. And the caged bird is standing on the grave of dreams. All its dreams are dead. He realizes that there is no way to fulfill it. And his life is worse than a nightmare, even scarier than a nightmare. His wings are clipped, his feet are tied. So he opens his throat to sing as a form of rebellion. As a form of rebellion. Next stanza. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. This stanza, as you can see, is repeated. Now here the purpose for this repetition is that the poet wants to let us all know that even though the privileged, in this case the owner of the caged bird, has restricted its freedom, has clipped its wing, tied its feet, but he cannot steal his voice. The caged bird still has his voice, and even if it has a fearful trill or wavering in its voice, it can still sing of freedom and motivate other people and rebel against the owner. So this was all about the textual understanding of the poem. As we go through the poem, you can see that there is no particular rhyming in the poem. However, the poet has used assonance and consonance. in the poem regularly. Also, there is an instance of internal rhyming. I'll show it to you. See here. Let me just change the color of the pen. Here, dawn and lawn. This is an example of internal rhyming. Okay. Now that we're done with the textual understanding of the poem, there is one theme prevalent throughout the poem, which is of freedom. And that freedom is a universal right. It's not restricted to a particular sector of the world. It should be equally available to humans and to animals. Here, in this particular case, Maya Angelou represents metaphorically about the situation of African American people. So here she is saying that freedom is not explicitly available to the whites. It is the equal right. जितना उनका है उतना ही हक हमारा भी है. On what? On freedom. Another important theme is that the poet very clearly establishes a difference or gives us a peep or insight into both types of lives. A free life and a bounded life, and the life of a captivity. When a person is free, it is up to him to decide what to do and what not to. Whereas a caged person or a caged bird, in this instance, depends on everything on its owner. And the last theme is the oppression of African American experience. Maya Angelou metaphorically expresses her own experience in America as a black woman. Also, we can see that Maya Angelou, because we have read her autobiography, she was sexually abused. So she also is writing from a female's perspective. That what it is also, we can say that it is a double layered poem. First, it talks about being an African, and second, it talks about being an African woman or a female. So that's it for the poem. The sample teaching video for the team of Vidyalai ends here. Thank you.